Welcome back to Good Day Northern Michigan. Well, tariffs have been dominating news headlines lately, and the on-again, off-again announcements sent the stock markets on a wild swing last week, posting record-breaking losses and record-breaking gains.
And joining us now to talk about, how that works, Centennial Wealth Financial Advisor, Jack Klunder.
Hey.
Jack, always a pleasure, sir.
Yes, thanks for having us on.
A long conversation to be had here, so
Yeah.
I'm just going to let you pick where we even start.
Well, that's a good point just to bring up what tariffs have done. I think tariffs they're trying to get a lot of people talking. And so I think if you use tariffs just as a talking point for what kind of impact is this going to have on your own personal finance. And I like the Blue Origin original part on the show because they get to go to space, right? And they get to look using kind of a telescope back onto Earth. And I think when tariffs have started people talking, I also hope that it can get them to just look at their planning from a telescope, right? And look from a far away, because if they get too granular too quickly, then the fear will set in. And then when you're using the fear part of your brain to try to think, negative hormones are released, and it's hard to think clearly and straight. And so I think with the tariffs, what they're doing is there was an imbalance, a trade imbalance, and they said, well, we don't like this imbalance. We need to do something about it. And because of that, now everybody is talking, about it. So
when looking at the stock markets then, because we're seeing that just going up and down, and then last week we saw great numbers, and then it plummeted. Can you just talk about maybe somehow making it make sense of how that can happen and be so drastic in a week?
Right. I think it was like the third most volatile week ever. Okay.
And that's not surprising.
And it's like a basketball bouncing up and down. Markets are up, markets are terrible. And so if you don't, in your own personal finance and your planning, if you don't take a step back and look at, where is the threat to my own financial future? How do tariffs impact that? I think people get worried about talking finances sometimes because it's so personal. But if you can plan, if you can go through those moments of worry, kind of let those walls down a little bit and start that conversation, and maybe it's going to take this tariff war and whatever's going to happen in the constantly changing environment of the tariffs to get people to focus on their own financial future and how that impacts them. I think that's a really healthy thing.
Well, silver lining. Yeah.
It is, because if there's an imbalance, if there's if you're not in a good spot health-wise, mentally or physically or financially, then you should do something about it. There's so many solutions, and what we get to do is we get to look and help partner with people and say, okay, here's the parts that you really should focus on. I mean, this is what you really should be worried about. Yeah, and tariffs might impact a little bit of that. And then as they learn where they should be worried and where they might not need to be worried, or where there's solutions, there's a different sense of peace that goes over there. Their planning.
Yeah. I would also love to know if, breaking it down even smaller, because it's such a big topic of conversation. At first it was kind of like, okay, we're hearing about the tariffs. Now it's like, okay, this is all we hear about. Can we talk about a little bit, what are some pros of the tariffs? What are some of the cons?
Yeah, hopefully some of the pros is that, production can come back to the United States. Over the last 17 years, okay, so since roughly about 2007, one of these financial analysts that we listened to, he said that the consumption of Americans over the last 17 years has grown approximately 62%. Okay?
Ooh, that's substantial.
The production over that same timeline has grown about 12%. So there's a 50% gap in consumption over production. Well, what makes the difference? Imports. We're importing these different things. And so the tariffs will hopefully make the products that are produced in the United States more advantageous, and markets can open up, and there can be kind of a repatriation of the workforce, and so that would be some of the pros. Some of the cons, additional costs potentially. It's kind of like a tax, so somebody's going to pay that somewhere, and that's where you start getting really granular with who's actually paying this. Well,
a lot of times it does.
At the end of the day, it probably is.
Which on that note, Jack, over at Centennial Wealth, you handle all kinds of financial planning. But is there any umbrella tip that you would offer to the folks out there who are very nervous about their investments, about the volatility of the markets right now? Something to just kind of maybe give them a little on this Monday morning.
Yeah, I'll do my best. Okay, so there's 5 things I think just really strongly we do think that you have to get in order. You have to have an income plan. When and where is your money coming from? When is it spending? And when is it going to be distributed? If all your money is in the market, then yeah, you're going to be really worried about whatever the market does. And the market's up, you're having a great day, and the market's down, you're having a terrible day. I don't think that's a good way to go through life.
Yeah,
That's not good for your mental health.
So planning your having your income plan is good. Your investment risk. I think a lot of people don't understand what investment no market risk options are out there. You can go and you can get out of what the stock market and bond market is doing. There's great rates. Today you can go get anywhere from 5 to 5.5% on a fixed rate, no market risk, right? People are like, oh, I didn't know about that. Yeah, it's out there. You can go get an indexed annuity.
Man, peace of mind
Yeah,
immediately.
exactly. So your investment risk really should be narrowed down. Like, where do you have risk and where do you not have risk? A lot of people, that they can identify where they have risk, but if you ask them where they don't have risk in their investment plan, they go blank. And that's where we get to teach to, and help. That's awesome. So those 2 things. Tax planning. If you don't have a tax plan, somebody else does, and it's probably not good for you. The IRS cometh at age 73, 75, and then through all the different taxes. So we have tax planning. So coordinating, what you do this year and then going forth. Your healthcare planning. So
that's important.
Where are you going to get your health care? You have your employer, you have Marketplace, or you have Medicare. But having a health care continuity plan actually uses all of those to connect. And so if you can coordinate those, that's awesome. And then finally, your estate plan. What happens if you pass away? Can you avoid probate? If you can't avoid probate, you got more work to do, and then we can help coordinate all of those things. So tariffs and the threats and getting them talking, getting your telescope view all the way down to your microscope view, and then talking to somebody, whether it's us, we love to teach, but there's great financial advisors out there. Whoever you use, just start those conversations to identify how much.
Great foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, historically, the market always rebounds. Sometimes it just takes a little bit longer than others. Some people are, putting money in more recently than others. They're waiting for the, it's a long process. But what should people know if maybe they want to take their money out or want to put money in or, just like right now it seems kind of like a scary time to do either or.
Yeah.
What would you say?
People reacting that way.
Yeah.
100%. And it's interesting to sit in our seat because we'll have people, and because we work on the whole spectrum of risk, we have people that have the whole spectrum of attitude on that. I'll get a call today, I bet you. Hey, I want to invest in the market. I'm getting a deal on it. I'll have the same, a different call today that'll be like, hey, these markets are way too worrisome for me. I want to get out of the market. I think when you look at some of these analysts, they're saying this recent pullback is getting the market into maybe a more fair value. Okay, so they had talked about maybe we were a little bit overvalued in the market. So this pullback might get closer to what those approximations of what the market should be valued at. And so when you look at when to take it in, or put money in and when to take it out, it depends on what your particular plan is, right? If you're young and you have time on your side and you want a dollar cost average, and these are great times to maybe buy because it's a part of your plan. You understand you're okay with the risk. If you're getting close to, or if you're in retirement, now it's your distribution plan that you really want to focus on, because if all your money's in the market and the market's having a bad stretch, now you're selling at a loss to raise the income to live life.
That's
blows
a tough
up.
situation.
You do not want to be in that boat.
Yeah.
Now, Jack, we could chat all day
I know,
about
it's okay.
this.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all
thank
great
you.
information.
Fantastic
especially right
information.
now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure all the information you need is over on 9and10news.com after the show. Jack, again, thank you so much.
Anytime.
We'll need to get you back for part 2.
There we go.
Absolutely. A whole mini series, maybe.
There we go.
Well,